Okay. So what year did you join the military?
40. At the end of the war, 45, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I got out early because the war was over.
What year did you get out?
48.
48. And what branch did you join?
The cavalry, army.
Army cavalry. Did you get to ride horses?
We did. We had a stable sergeant, a horseshoe, all of it. Because the roads were bad when we got into Japan, we went around looking for caches of arms. But this is our regimental.
Oh, the pin?
Yes. This is not a. It is, I guess, humorous, but it wasn't intended as being that. It's the Rocking Horse Regiment, the 8th Cavalry Regiment.
And you were in the 8th Cavalry?
8th Cavalry, the regiment, the 1st Cavalry Division, 8th Cavalry Regiment.
And what year did you go to Japan?
We went into Japan at the end of the Second World War.
When did you when were you deployed to go into Japan to attack?
Well, we went into Japan. The war ended quickly because of the atomic bomb, but then we went in.
And how long were you in Japan for?
2 years.
And what were your what all were your duties there?
I'm going to tell you the truth, I was a squad leader of a machine gun squad, but most of the time I was, if you were lucky enough to be on a division football team or basketball, that's all you did, so that's what I did. After the first 6 months I just played sports.
And where did you go for your basic training?
Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
And how long was basic training back then?
I'm guessing 2 months.
2 months.
I'm guessing, that's a guess, maybe 6 weeks.
And what was that like?
It was just learning the basics of Army life.
Yeah. Do you think it's different now, the basic training?
Oh, I'm sure it is. They got women in the service now, and they are smart and do good things and all that.
Were the only women back then nurses?
Oh, yes. And this is not nice to say because they're some of our best soldiers, but no black man could serve in a combat outfit, so they did supply things. But all men. And I was in a all volunteer service.
And they were segregated?
They were indeed.
And they did supplies and that sort of thing?
Correct.
And were you drafted or did you?
No, I enlisted.
You enlisted.
And one of the things, they had the GI Bill, which was a big incentive to help me go to college.
Where did you go to college at?
A school called Santa Clara. It's a California school.
California. And did you go for 4 years?
Yes, went there.
And what were the GI benefits back then?
Well, they paid for the education, and on top of it, you got $75 a month. So they paid for everything and gave you a check for $75 a month. It was based on your length of service.
Uh-huh. And what made you want to join the service?
I think almost everybody did in those days. From a young, and the GI Bill was a big incentive.
Right. How did you feel about what was going on in the world at that time about, the Nazis and Japan and World War II?
I don't think there was as much information then about it. I had no real thoughts about it, just joining the service, I guess.
Did you ever see combat in Japan or anywhere else?
No. It was, the war ended with the atomic bomb.
And was that right before you came to Japan?
Yes.
Okay. And did you get to meet any Japanese people while you were stationed there?
The people who worked for me when I ran, I was a squad leader, and then I ran an NCO club for a few months before I went to play football. That's the only people that I knew of the people who worked in the NCO club. And we all got a free haircut every Friday. Inspection was Saturday, so all those services were free.
And what were their attitudes towards Americans?
I really don't know. They were very quiet, and I don't know. I think the big thing is when the emperor said stop fighting, I think most people said that's what we should do, and I think that's what the Japanese did. But, you know, Nagoya was a town in southern Honshu, the main island, and they made the famous Zero airplane, and they made it underground, so we couldn't get to the factory, so we bombed the homes where people lived and killed the workers, which was terrible, but that's what happened.
And what was your reaction back, or what were people's reaction when you came home from the war?
What was their reaction towards us, towards us returning veterans?
Uh-huh.
Good, they welcomed them back.
And what were your experiences, you know, about 20, 30 years later when the veterans came home from Vietnam? Was there a different
I don't
feeling?
know, but I think there was a different, there was a mixed group of people. Some thought they did terrible things, some welcomed them home. It was not a general appreciation of having served. It was pretty, I thought, pretty simple. I mean, you went into the service and it was not a disgrace, but people didn't want to be 4F. They didn't want to be injured, but I couldn't say most people wanted to serve. Not all wanted to go into combat, but all wanted to do something.
Right. Now, where was your home back then?
Seattle.
Seattle. And you came home to your family?
My mother and father, and I did.
Did you have any siblings in the service?
I had one brother, younger brother.
Was he in the Army as well?
He did go in the Army. He went to Seattle University and went the ROTC program, and he ended up becoming an officer and served as an officer.
Did you two serve at the same time?
No, he's younger than I am by about 4 years.
Oh, about 4 years. Okay. Did you have any other relatives in the service?
I have no other relatives in the service. Oh yes, that's true. My cousin was in the Navy. He was ended up being a captain in the Navy. But in those days, you went to sea for 18 months and then you came home.
Yeah, long deployments.
Yeah.
Did your mother hang a blue star in her window while you were gone?
I doubt it. I doubt it very much.
And what were your experiences, or were you just in Japan for all of your...
Almost all of it was Japan, here in the United States and then Japan.
Where were you stationed here?
Oh, just in North Carolina.
North Carolina, oh, in Fort Bragg.
Fort Bragg.
And what did you see in Japan as far as remnants of the atomic bomb?
I don't think we went into Hiroshima or Nagasaki, but the Tokyo was pretty well bombed out. It wasn't the atomic bomb, but the heavy bombing by American. It was the Army Air Corps in those days, and they bombed. It was pretty badly bombed.
Where were you stationed at in Japan?
I was stationed outside of Tokyo. I was stationed north of Tokyo, about 50 miles. Omiya is a small town. We had a base there.
Did you encounter any of the Japanese people besides the ones that you worked with? Or?
Not really. It was. I was against the American Army law to fraternize, but some of the fellows did have Japanese girlfriends. I didn't happen to have one, but.
Did they?
No, not so much. There was in Tokyo itself. There was a big theater and a restaurant called the Ernie Pyle Center, named after that famous war correspondent. And we'd go in there and go to a movie and wander around.
How much were movies back then?
I'm guessing they were free, and hamburgers I think were 10 cents.
Times have changed.
But I was at that time I was a corporal and got overseas pay and all that, and I made I think $40 a month. So hamburgers were relatively competitive with the price of your salary.
Did any of your friends in the Army, did they come back home with Japanese wives? Or?
Oh, yeah, not necessarily my friends, older fellows did. Yes, they did. Oh, they did bring back Japanese wives.
Or did you know how they were treated when they came back home?
I didn't really know. I would guess there'd be some problems. Not only were they of a different race, but they were with a race that we had been at war with, so I guess there were some problems there. It was easier for men, I'm thinking, that went to Europe and married French women.
Now, how did you get to Japan? Did you go mostly by battleship, or?
No, we were troop carriers. Ships, they don't do that anymore.
And how long did that trip take?
Well, from this kind of over, we went 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And there were some fellows that went on the ship that maybe weighed 250 pounds. When they got off the ship, they weighed 100 pounds. I was never seasick, but a lot of the guys were.
Yeah. So did you mix in with the Navy on those ships, or?
Well, we had them on it, but we were all segregated. We were all the Army guys were there. We had one on with our rifle.
How often did you get leave while you were in Japan?
I didn't take leave, but some of the fellows did. They would get every year. They get a couple of weeks.
Did they go home, or?
No, they couldn't go home. They could go places in Japan. There was no way to get home. If you were in the Air Force, maybe you could. It was about a 20-hour flight if you had a B-17 or one of those.
So you stayed in Japan for all those pretty much 2.5 years. And have you ever contacted anyone you fought or you served with?
Sure. Yeah. Al Frost is a friend of mine. He later ended up working for the Army. And he's now retired, lives in the South, I think in Carolina. He was from Bayonne, New Jersey, but after he got out of the service, he went to school and went to work for the Army and ended up, as a civilian, serving his life as a employee of the Army.
Have you ever been to any reunions?
No, we have them. I send money for them, but they have them down in Texas.
Have you ever been to the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C.?
No, what they call a delay en route. So when I came back from basic training, I stopped in Washington, D.C. and went to Lincoln Memorial and back. But there were not any World War II memorials at that time.
Have you been back since then?
No,
to D.C.?
I've been back, but not to Washington, D.C. To New York.
All right. Well, I think that is everything, unless you wanted to tell me.
Nothing I had to say. I'm glad I can do it, and that's the end of it. There we are. And they don't use horses anymore, except in Arlington Cemetery.
Yeah.
We had a stable sergeant, a horseshoer, all of those.
And you rode horses quite a bit?
Yes. Oh, yes. This is not nice to say, but it's true. When you learn that you never walk a horse that needs to urinate, you let it ruin its bladder if you do. And also a man who used to practice with a 45, unfortunately, he was new to riding a horse, and he shot his horse in the neck and killed the horse. It wasn't killing the horse that was a big problem. He destroyed government property. So that was it. But that's the story. That's what I need from you then.
And I can use this for my journalism class?
Do whatever you want. There's nothing there that what we used to say, name, rank, and serial number, nothing else.
Nothing else.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jack.
Well, there wasn't much there, but I'm glad to do it. Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.